We're talking about relationships. We're doing a thing. We had a little panel with Joel and I and Theresa last week, and next week we got a panel with some married couples and different things. And today they trust me to preach today, so I'm honored by that they would allow me to preach today. So, but we want to talk about transformational relationships today. Friends, transformational relationships. Can be friends, can be mentors, different things. And I've told you this before, but there's 3 different types of relationships that I think is essential to every person's growth. I think these are kingdom relationships that if you don't have all 3 of these relationships in your life, you will miss out on your destiny somewhere in your life. The number one friend that you need is and I'll put this in one category, God and mentors. You need God, of course, but you need a mentor. You need God, of course, but I'm putting that in one category in that there's somebody that's over you that you're not necessarily friends with. You don't even have to even know their name. Or you don't have to, well, you have to know their name, but you don't have to you don't have to be their best friend to realize that, I have some great mentors in my life, even though I'm almost 60. I have great mentors in my life that have helped me pull up and they're friends. Especially one guy I was thinking of. He's a good friend, but we probably call each other once a month, talk once a month. And in our earlier years, he was a great mentor of ours. And this Casey Treat, he was a great mentor of ours and friend. But we don't talk that much anymore. But he's still a great mentor and friend to me. And every time I see him, this is the way I approach mentors. I always buy him. So every time I see him, I buy him something. I take a gift with me to go when I get to see him, because we like the same things. He's a pretty easy guy to please when he likes the same thing I like. So I love that relationship. I love somebody to pull me up in my life. Just I look at somebody and I've looked at Casey many times and I thought, can I do that in church? And I thought, well, I'm just going to do that in church. It's kind of just that thing where you kind of gives you permission to be better than you already are. God, of course, gives us permission, but mentors give us the permission to be more than we already are. Now, I'll say this, mentors are somebody that you go after. Mentors don't come after you all the time. Mentors are somebody that you go after. And I'm going to say really all these relationships are relationships that you need to pursue on your own to go after. Now, mentors should be going after people, but they don't always have time and different things. It's always fascinating to me the way the people that you think should go after mentors don't go after mentors. We kind of get stuck in our life, and if you don't have somebody to pull you up, if you don't have somebody that thinks big or thinks stronger than you or thinks where you want to go, then chances are I'll just say probably 100% chance you won't get to the next level without being around somebody that thinks to the level that you want to go to. I actually had lunch with Casey one time, and he was talking about, and I have many mentors. Casey's, I've just used him as an example. One time I made a special point to have lunch with him because he made a statement to me. He made a statement to a crowd when he was moving buildings, and he made a statement, and it just floored me that I said, Casey, and I looked at him and I said, Casey, I need to learn how you think, because I never would have thought the way you said that. I need to learn how you think. So what was behind your thinking in that? It's always fascinating to me the way that when people get around people that are greater than themselves, they spend most of the time talking about themselves. And really what we should be doing is asking questions. I remember being on the golf course with Oral Roberts, and I got a chance to be with Oral Roberts for 3 days in a golf cart, just him and I, because of a thing. It's a long story. I don't have time to go into that. But, Oral Roberts was controversial back then, but, whatever. I'm just like, this is one of the guys, the healing revival of the 40s and 50s. And so I sat in the golf cart, and I took my little scorecard, and I asked him questions. There was one time, I'll never forget it, because it was pouring down rain. We were in Hawaii, and it was pouring down rain. And I thought, great. So there's only place for shelter was in the golf cart in the middle of the fairway. Nobody was out there. And so I began to ask him questions, and I began to write down the answers that he gave me on those questions. And some of the things that I learned from him that day was because I was interested in what he had to say. Now, to be honest with you, I'm sure that 6 weeks down the road, he won't even remember my name. That's okay, because I remember what he said to me, because I'm pulling. You got to pull on a mentor. You got to grab a hold of a mentor and pull on him. Second relationship you want to have is a friend or that will sustain you, somebody that's going the same way you are, that may not be a mentor to you, may not be below you, but maybe a peer that says, okay, let's go on this journey together. Those are the guys you go on vacations with. Those are the guys that you hang out with. Those are the guys that you have fun with. Those are the guys that are saying, okay, we have a common vision, common goal, but we're headed in the right direction. Now, hopefully you don't have friends like this.
Josh, do it now! David, try to...
Oh! There's a good one.
The visor's gotta hit the ceiling.
I'm not gonna do it this time.
You promise?
Yes.
Oh, son.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Gangnam Style!
Just throw it?
Yep.
He's like, oh, you're out. Go.
Yeah, but that was just one.
Oh! Jed's there. Okay, go ahead. Oh!
How many of you got friends like that? I've got a few like that too. I was with Rick Sharkey, who's a pastor in Spokane, 35, 40 years in Spokane pastoring, and we were in Tulsa recently, just a few weeks ago, and we were in Tulsa, and he's one of my greatest friends, and we text back and forth, and I mean, we'll be sitting right next to each other in a meeting, and we're texting back and forth. It's like, somebody deliver me from this meeting. I mean, my God, there's very few people I can talk that way to, but one of my great friends in the world. You got to have friends that kind of sustain you and keep you going. The third one is a relationship, and this is just my intro, but people that you can make their life better by you being in their life. It's somebody that for no other reason that exists on the earth, but for you to be in their life because you make their life better. Now, you don't have to walk up to somebody and say, hey, guess what? I want to hang out with you because I'm going to make your life amazing. Although I did that when I married my wife, right, baby? I did. See why we're still married is because she just agrees with whatever I say. That's really good. But really, there's just certain people in your life, you just take care of them. You take care of them, and you just deal with them, and you say, you know what? I'm going to be a part of this person's life because I'm going to pull them up to a new level. And they wouldn't be where they're at without you in their life. And those are the three relationships I believe that we need, are biblical relationships. In John chapter 15, verse 9, he says, as the Father's loved me, I also love you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things have I spoken to you, that your joy might remain in you, and that your joy may be full. This is a commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Now, this statement always bugged me. I'll explain it at the end. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I've heard my Father and have made known to you, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, I'll give you. And these things I command you, that you love one another. Jesus makes this statement. It bothered me for years. He said, you are my friends if you do whatever I command you. Isn't that kind of a weird, it's like, if you do what I say, we're going to be friends. And so in indicating, if you don't do what I say, we're not going to be friends. That really bothered me. And I was thinking, well, that doesn't sound like grace. That doesn't sound like who Jesus is. It doesn't line up with the rest of the Bible that I can see. But then I realized, I was reading a book one day, and I asked the Lord, you kind of ask the Lord, what's the interpretation of that? There's something wrong there. There's something wrong I'm not getting here. There's something I'm not getting here. So I was reading a book, and it was a book on friends or something, and it was a biblical book on friends. And he said this, and I love this statement. I think it's true. He said, when that statement, you are my friends if you do whatever I tell you, he's basically saying that I've transformed your life to a place where you're doing my commandments because of the transformational relationship we have. So the fruit of it is obviously you're a friend of mine because I've transformed your life so much that you're doing what I command you to do. Not if you do these things, then you're doing it. But our relationship, because of the relationship we have, has transformed your life. And that's the transformational life that we have in Jesus. Without Jesus, we're all pretty much a joke. So, in walking in these transformational relationships, there's a statement Proverbs makes in Proverbs 13:20, and he says this, and this is, you have to understand the way I approach the Bible. The way I approach the Bible is just simply, if it says it, I believe it. And there's no other way around it. So, when it says, the Bible says in Proverbs 13:20, he says, he who walks with wise men will be wise. But the companion of fools will be destroyed. Except the kids that I let my kids hang out with. Because they're good at heart. They get into a little trouble. But that scripture doesn't apply to them because I have a good boy. Uh-huh. Or I have a good daughter. Uh-huh. There's times in our parents' life especially where you have to say, look, parents, as a parent, you have to say to your kid, you don't have to call him this, I will, but you don't have to call him this. It's just, hey, you're hanging around stupid. You need to not hang around stupid anymore. Because you're being stupid because you're hanging around stupid. And I think that's just good parenting, is you have to just say, here's your list of friends sometimes. And you have to do that over the years. But the reality is, for those of us who are adults and have the choice, we can look around and say, oh, that guy's amazingly wise. I'm going to go hang around him because I'm going to get wiser. Or that guy's really dumb, rebellious, stupid, but he's my friend. We grew up together. Well, that all may be true, but the reality is, what do you want out of your life? Do you want that transformational relationship? Because I guarantee you, it will be transformational. It just might be the transformation you don't want. Because it's a guaranteed fact that it's going to happen. Something is going to happen when you get people that are wise with people that aren't wise, and they'll become wiser. This other person will become wise. But if you get a guy that's going in the right direction but doesn't really know, and he gets around stupid people, you become stupid. You know what stupid means in the Greek? Stupid. You know what it means in Hebrew? Stupid. And you can't help stupid. You can't help stupid. So the reality is you have to get around people that help us. But we have to walk together. We have to walk together in relationships. And we're all different in our relationships. And we're all funny people. And we have our little quirks and different things. And, I talked about Pastor Sharkey, and he's got his ways of doing things. And just he's a funny guy. But some of the things I just look at and I just shake my head and go, whatever. And I'm sure he looks at me and goes, whatever, But there's enough harmony and unity to walk together because the Bible says in Amos 3:3, can two walk together unless they be agreed? Disagreement doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong and I'm right. It just means division. Two visions is division. And so we have to walk together in agreement even though we have different thoughts and different ways of thinking. So I got 5 quick things that I want to talk to you about harmony and walking together in relationships. The first one is we have to rejoice over our differences. I like this one in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 20. Paul describes it this way. There was fighting. If you didn't know about the Corinthian church, there was all kinds of fighting amongst the Corinthian church. Very carnal, fleshly group of people that just gotten saved. And they're pulled both different ways and different things. And Paul says this, he says, But in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 20, he says, but now, indeed, these are members, yet one body. We're all members, but one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor can the head to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather those members of the body which seem to be the weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which think to be less honorable, of these we bestow greater honor, and our unrepresented parts are greater in modesty. So Paul's basically saying this, I need you. I got to have you in my life. Now, I may be an eye, you may be a hand, you may be a foot, but we need each other. Aren't you glad that you woke up this morning, your eye didn't say, I think I'm going to take the day off? Aren't you glad, you know? It's like, man, I've been trying to wake them suckers up, and they just won't wake up. The daylight saving time, they're on a different time frame than the foot. I just can't make this thing happen today. So aren't you glad that somebody didn't take the time off? Aren't you glad that your feet just didn't decide, apparently a lot of people did, but apparently somehow their feet didn't take time off and say, well, I'm just going to take some time off today. So we can't take time off. People look at things in different perspective. A lot of things that you see around Faith Center do not have my fingerprints on them. They have somebody else's fingerprints on them. And I thank God for that, because I am not very good at most things. And one of the strengths of our ministry is finding out what you're good at, and quit trying to be good at the things you're not good at. You can maybe improve a little bit, but the reality is most people that are successful find out what they're good at and just recognize that there's differences and different ways of thinking, and enjoy the fact that we need each other to complete one another. Let me give you an example of this. You got a microphone? Okay, you guys, Jerry, can I use you? Pastor Jerry, can I use you? Stand face that way. Come here, right here, face that way. Jess, come here, face that way. Just, you're against right there like that. All right, so now you don't have to touch, man. You don't have to, this is a guy thing. Just don't touch there. There's a guy thing. 49 guys in Fight Club this round. 49 guys. All right, Jess, describe, just give me, look over on this side of the sanctuary and give me 5 things that stand out to you. Just what, I don't care what they are, just whatever. Just 5 things. Anything.
Smiles, happiness.
No, not people. Don't worry about people. You can do people, but okay, you got smiles, now get off of people and do something else. What else do you see out there?
Signs.
What kind of signs?
Pictures of people.
Okay, what else?
Cameras.
Cameras, what else?
Doors.
Doors, okay. Thank you. Jerry, just give me 5 things that you see over here that stand out to you.
Exit sign with doors, bright lights.
Bright lights.
People looking at me really strangely.
Yeah. They do that to me every Sunday. What else?
And carpeting on the floor.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. Sit down. Thanks, guys. You can sit down. All right. Are they both in the sanctuary? Are they? This is not a trick question. Are they both in the sanctuary? Yes. It's just that Jess's perspective is different than Jerry's perspective of the thing. It's the same sanctuary, but one sees things a little different and pointed a few things. Some of them signs were different. Jess didn't mention lights, but you mentioned smiles. Pastor Jerry never sees smiles. He's in that now. Just kidding. He always sees smiles. And he's a great smiler, but he didn't. But he saw smiles. Pastor Jerry didn't. That's okay. You saw the exit sign. You mentioned it. You mentioned signs, but see, yours was close to what he said, but it was different. And anytime you're in a relationship, and it's a harmonious relationship, you'll be close to what the other person says, but you'll see things differently, and you'll emphasize and point out things differently. The problem lies is when Pastor Jerry and Jess are up here, and Jess says, look, if you don't see those smiles, you're out of here. Well, Jess, I know, and that's really good, but you understand, you wouldn't see the smiles without the lights. And if you don't see things without the lights, you're stupid. But we do that all the time. we do that in relationships is we like to point out things because we see things that are different than our brother or different than our sister or even for our wives and different things. We see things that are differently, but we're in the same room. We're on the same team. And what we should do is realize, Pastor Jerry, I didn't even see that, but thanks for pointing that out to me. And I didn't even see that. I didn't think about smiles because I was concentrating on lights today, but thanks for keeping me reminded that there's smiles in the auditorium. Not that you'd have to, but you understand what I'm saying. So instead of rejoicing with what they're saying and rejoicing in what they saw differently, we tend to criticize what they saw differently. And in relationships, if you want to have a harmonious balance with people, you need to flow together. Now, my wife has season tickets to the play. What would you call that? The Broadway plays. And so she asked me if I wanted to go to one. And I said, well, absolutely, I want to go to one. And I went to the Phantom of the Opera one time with her, and I dressed up, and I had a suit on, and I had these slip-on shoes on. And if it wouldn't have been for the slip-on shoes on, to put my feet on the cold floor, I would have fallen asleep. It was the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. It was terrible. So we went with Mark and Heather, and we had a great time with Mark and Heather, good friends, and they have season tickets. And so we went to see The Sound of Music the other night. The hills are alive. I saw that, tell you how old I am. I saw that in the Liberty Theater when it came out originally. Can anybody relate to that at all? Yeah, well, maybe two of you, not any of you are that ancient. It came out in the 60s. I enjoyed being with my wife, and I enjoyed because I've watched that, thing, and I enjoyed that. And I really did enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I really, really did enjoy being with my wife. And I enjoyed being with Mark and Heather. We went to dinner beforehand. I enjoyed them paying for dinner even more. And we went to Ginger Pop, had some nice Thai food. It was great. And Heather knows where to park, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. But I found myself thinking during the play, there's probably 100 things I'd rather be doing right now than go... And I start comparing things. Would I enjoy playing a round of golf more than being at this play? The answer was hands down, yes. Phantom's coming again, and I'm not invited. But my point is not simply, I really did, and I love being with my wife, and I enjoyed the time we dressed up and different things. And I really enjoyed it because it's her thing, and I enjoy being with her because that's what creates a great relationship. But would it be my favorite thing to do? No. But I'll have you know. I'm going to get her. I just thought of this. How many times have you gone golfing with me? Come on, how many times? Yeah, she sat in the cart and drove the cart, drank diet sodas on the way. Maybe twice in my life she's done that. So don't harp on me that I'm not cultured. Because I done got cultured on Friday night. I done got cultured. I'm now sophisticated. Well, I've never bought you golf clubs because it would be a waste of my money and time. However, I'm really thinking about custom golf clubs that just might fit me that I would give to her. But can you see my point? Now, it was great. I enjoyed it. And I say that sincerely. I really enjoyed the evening. But would it be my favorite thing to do? No. And did I sit there and think, why is anybody enjoying this? Those thoughts did come across my mind. Now I took her we went to New York City, and we walked. Now this is how cultured I am. We went to watch School of Rock play. Oh, come on, baby. That is something everybody has to go watch that. You really are cultured if you go walk that. That was great. But my point is just simply this. We're different, and we flow together in harmony, not based upon our agreements all the time, although we have a lot of them, but we overlooked each other's disagreements, if you will. I've watched one Star Wars movie my whole life, and I thought it was the most boring thing I've ever watched in my life. And my wife, she goes and takes the girls and they go watch all these things. And to me, if it doesn't, if it's not like almost realistic, I don't want to see it. And, Jeremiah Johnson is... Yeah, come on. She doesn't even have a mic. Cut her off. Somehow, cut her off. Joel, would you put a muzzle on your mom? He just looks down. I've been staying out of those my whole life. But can you see there's differences? But we walk together. And Theresa and I don't know of anybody that has a greater relationship than Theresa and I do. We have an amazing marriage, and we really do have an amazing, we've just sit back and season we're in, the life we live, and it's the most amazing life we live. But man, I'm telling you, we are just totally opposite people from one another. We're just totally opposite people with one another. And I'm telling you, you can work together in harmony and recognize each other's differences and work together in harmony and realize that, man, you got to recognize that the greatest thing you can do is recognize that you're probably only good at one or two things, and when you try three, you're probably going to fail. Just realize what you're good at and recognize that you need other people in your life to help you. Number two, recognize relationships empower you to do more. The great Red Auerbach from the Boston Celtics won back-to-back championships back about the time I was watching the Sound of Music live. Started coaching, and he said this, people told him, he said, put your best 5 players on the floor. And so he'd put his best 5 players on the floor, and they'd lose. And then he realized you don't put your best 5 players on your floor, you put your best 5 players that play in harmony together on the floor. And that's when they begin to win things, and people that were just maybe better basketball players didn't get as much time because they wouldn't walk in harmony together with other people. You know, God made us deficient by design. All of us need each other in things, in relationships. Adam needed Eve. You ever heard of Paul and Silas, Jonathan and David, Ruth and Naomi? Even Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2. We all need each other. It's almost like God made us deficient by design for a purpose, because it's almost like when you have a person here and a person here, when they come together, they create something that's something else that can't be created without those two coming together. It's like creativity. This is why I enjoy our pulpit meetings and things, because we come up with creative ideas, but it's funny how we all come to the table with an idea, and nobody in our pulpit team says, well, that was my idea, that was my idea. They come together, and generally it's not one idea, it's an idea that's a spark, and then on that spark, a fire is lit because of that spark. But I know that I wouldn't get it on my own, and people wouldn't, without the help of the other people. Together we create something. It's almost a third, I'm not going to use the third person, but it's almost a third thinking process that happens when two people come together in unity and harmony, and there's very much power in that. The key to these long-term relationships, of course, has got to be love. It's got to be the realization that you need to love one another is the key. Now, love isn't always one of those things that we think of love, and if I hear this thing one more time, I just get so frustrated when people say, well, what's the definition of a friend? A friend, puts up with me when I'm going through a hard time. Not my friends. They don't put up with me when I'm going through a hard time. They say, well, you can think about it this way, but the bottom line is you better get over it, because if you don't get over it, it'll kill you. And most people just say, well, we're just going to love each other through this thing. No. Friends kind of just deal with stuff they kind of just say, boom, we're going to deal with that stuff. And love invests in people in ways. Now, people love also, and just some characteristics of love, these people will have your back. Do you ever go through a hard time, in a relational hard time, and think about this now, I'm trying to give you a practical thing, and if you know my messages, they're always pretty practical, try to something we can live. But maybe you've gone through a hard time. Maybe you've gone through a divorce. Maybe you've gone through, if you're young, maybe a breakup. Maybe you've gone through a situation where somebody betrayed you at work. Maybe you've gone through a situation, some kind of betrayals happened to you. But you always remember the one friend that stood by you in that and says, they did what to you? They did what to you? Oh, I tell you, if I tell you, I'd shoot them people right now if I get over. And you're thinking, no, I don't want you to do that. Well, I kind of do, but don't really want you to do that. But you kind of like that one friend that says, I got your back. I tell people all the time, they don't, maybe it's not biblical, I don't know. But if you're my friend, I say, you hate Casey Treat, I hate you. I don't know if it's biblical, but I like it. You hate Rick Sharkey, I hate you, you know. I mean, I'm just that kind of guy. You know, our Fight Club guys are kind of like that, man. They get out there, and I'm telling you, these Fight Club guys, man, there's a remnant rising up in our church. I'm telling you, there's a remnant rising up in our church. There's a groundswell of guys that are quiet guys that just kind of cross their hands and say, you better not mess with my brothers. Oh, Mr. Devil, you trying to attack my brother? I'll cut off your head and spit down your neck. And they'll do it in a quiet manner. There's a remnant of guys rising up. And I'm telling you, our church will grow to thousands and thousands and thousands of people when more people with a remnant of guys rise up and take their place. Just unassumingly, I got your back. I got your back. There's something about love, man. Love protects and guides and different things. Love calls you out. Love hates your enemies. Love is covenant and deep and lasting. Love is what makes a harmonious balance. You mess with my wife, you mess with me. Because we have a covenant relationship together. We have that relationship that's amazing relationship that we have. But you better not mess with her. Better not mess with her. I think Joel mentioned last week when he was a young kid, I think he was 10 or 12 years old, and he was mouthing off to his mom, and I said, that was my wife before she was your mother. And I mean that. And my son doesn't have the right to talk to you wouldn't have the right to talk to my wife that way, and my son doesn't have the right to talk to my wife that way. Well, that's his mom. Well, even more. Love invests. Love is, can I just say this? We get this thing in the Bible. We're supposed to love one another. And we've let the world define what love is. But love, man, is defined in 1 Corinthians 4. We don't have time to go into it. Or 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4 through 8. It's defined in there what love is. And it's void of feeling. The kind of love that God has is love just in spite of feelings, but it is an amazing thing. Love. The other thing, if you want to have a harmonious balance, is you got to communicate with one another. Last but not least, you got to communicate. The Bible says in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, it says, speaking the truth in love may grow up into all things unto him who is the head, even Christ. So you can speak the truth. The Bible says you got to speak the truth in love, and communication is one of those things where you can't lose communications. The minute you break down in communication is the minute you break down in relationship. And you watch relationships begin to falter and go weird because they stop communicating with one another. It's the key to everything in life is communication, especially with your spouse. Communicate all the time with your spouse. And I've told you the way Theresa and I communicate, times. And we're texting each other or calling each other or we have these amazing, we go out on hot dates at least once a week to Walmart. It's amazing hot dates we have. Costco, and I mean, they are hot dates, I'm telling you. But what it is just our communication time. It's when we get together, and we work together here, but there's not a lot of time to communicating different things. Communication, when communication breaks down, immediately when there's no communication, your mind will wander to the negative every time. You'll start thinking things every time that aren't real because your mind is a crazy, weird thing. Transformational relationships are something we all need. As the worship team's coming on up, I want to read something to you, and I want this to be a transformational morning for me. I don't know how many people, maybe none, maybe a bunch. But I don't know how to say it. You know, again, you have to understand where I came from. I was cutting down timber when I got saved. So, you know, the F word was, you know, the part of my voice. I mean, I'm not cultured. So if I can say it this way, great relationships, people get on you. If I'm walking side by side, you get on me and I get on you. Not get on in the sense of confrontation, but we just can't help but become alike it's transformational. If you hang around me, you will be better. You will be better. Or you will exit my life because I will make sure you're better. I mean, it's just, I'm a transformational guy because I have a transformational God. Let me read a story to you out of Luke chapter 19. Pastor Bill preached about this last night, did a great job last night preaching. It's something, I'm going in a totally different direction than he went last night. But I want you to see a transformational relationship that just by somebody's presence, it changed somebody's life. And I'm telling you, it is that easy to change a life. Is when I find that when people go away and they've done something stupid, the first thing they do is get out of your presence. Pastor Bill and Vicki, how many times have you seen that? The minute somebody goes back into drugs, what do? Do they come and sit on the front row? No, they exit the church because they don't want to be around you. Because they know that I got to stay away from transformational people because that'll bring me back to where I once was and I feel bad about it. Watch this transformational relationship that happened here. And then we want to pray for you. Luke chapter 19, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. Some of the young people say, I have no idea what he's talking about. Hear Wayne laughing back there. He knows what I'm talking about. Jesus entered and passed through Jericho, and now behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. And he sought to see who Jesus was, but could not because of the crowd, for he was of short stature. So he ran ahead, climbed up into the sycamore tree to see him, for he was going to pass by that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said to him, Zacchaeus, make haste, come down, for today I must stay at your house. And of course, we preached on that before. Pastor Bill did this last night. Jesus was on an assignment. I must. That means he was on an assignment. Probably heard from the Holy Ghost. So he made haste, came down, and received him joyfully. But when they saw him, they all complained, saying, he's gone to be a guest with a man who was a sinner. Yeah, he did. Then Zacchaeus stood and said now here Jesus, he goes, eats with him, come down, he eats with him. Zacchaeus stood and said, look, Lord, half my goods I give to the poor, and if I've taken anything from anyone by false accusation, I restore fourfold. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he also is the son of Abraham, for the Son of Man is coming to seek and to save that which was lost. The very presence of Jesus was transformation. Notice it doesn't say, and Jesus elaborated the scriptures to him. Jesus preached the 4 spiritual laws of salvation to him. Jesus took him through a long, drawn-out deliverance program. No, the man just ate with him, and it was transformation.